Right?
Yeah.
Take a screenshot and send me. What investigation is not doing?
He's running an investigation.
No?
I have no idea. Is he?
This kid's in hell.
What investigation is he?
Because I have to talk to him about bathing suit for the state meeting. He said, I'm not available, I'm running an investigation.
Oh, God knows. Oh, God knows what that is. Oh, God knows. Mm-hmm. Good morning, everyone. Just gonna rename myself, sorry. If I can ask everyone who's on to sign into the chat with your full name, and please let us know if you're a member. Type member after your name. If you need CTLE hours, please type CTLE after your name.
Hi, Denise.
Hi, Tim. So do you want me to let you speak for a half hour or do you want me to just run the video,
I'm really comfortable either way. Unfortunately, I'll be available to answer questions in the chat in the second in the kind of the second half, but I have another meeting that starts at 10:30. So it's
Okay.
kind of like I'm not doing anything in that meeting other than being there. But
Okay.
in the same token, it's like I got to be there. But I can't answer chats. I think the best thing for me to do is to share my email address and my contact information in the beginning.
Okay.
And let them know that they can reach out to me at any time as it relates to the sensory integration stuff. And yeah, I'm happy to respond. We're also going to have a session at the state conference as well. That'll be, I'd like to put a promo out for Ann Griffin, who's a National Teacher of the Year, APE Teacher of the Year, who will be at the conference too. So yeah, so whenever, if that makes sense to you, I'll take for maybe the first 3 to 5 minutes and then we'll run, okay?
Yeah, then I'll share my screen and then, yeah, and I can actually put your email in
Yeah,
that, so I'll do that. Let me see, I'll do that right now, as a matter of fact.
right, yeah, so it's davist@cortland.edu.
It's not Timothy Davis at Cortland EDU?
That'll work too, yeah. Davis T is my oldest one, so yeah, Timothy.Davis, that's fine.
Okay. Not the greatest technology person, so
Okay.
bear with me. Thank you.
Don't sweat it.
Let's see. Let's see if that works. Yeah, okay.
We just listened to Clancy. Unfortunately, halfway through his session, his PowerPoint froze, but he's so good, right?
He just went with it.
Seamless.
Yeah.
He's so good.
I'm not that technology gifted.
No worries. We got a few people in the chat. We got a few people.
We have, yes. So I'll just give it a minute or more. Those of you that have signed in already, if in the chat you could sign in using your full name, indicate if you're a member, put member after your name. If you need CTLE hours, please put CTLE after your name. We're going to use that as a way of checking attendance and giving the CTLE hours.
Hey, if you're a Chico, or not a Chico, if you're a Chico grad, put it in there. But I don't think we have any Chico State grads. That's where I went to school back in the day with Dr. Madden. Dr. Madden is also a Chico State grad. But if we have any Cortland State grads, right? You got any Cortland State grads out there? I see one already, a couple already. Shout out to GSL and a few others. Yeah, good to see folks. I love the Cortland connection, and of course we have a lot of nice to see some names that I haven't seen in a while.
All right, I'm going to start
Sure.
so we get the full session in. Welcome, everyone. My name is Denise Tamici. I'm the registrar for the Southeastern Zone Conference. If you are a member of New York State AFERT, thank you, thank you, thank you. If you're not, I am strongly asking you to please consider becoming a member. We have so many benefits: professional development, networking. The liability insurance alone is worth it. And if you're interested, you can email me or just visit NewYorkStateAFERT.org. The Southeastern Zone is looking for new members for our executive board. We would like to feature a new board position of county representative, one for each county in our zone: Dutchess, Putnam, Rockland, and Westchester. This will give members a great opportunity to become active in the organization while serving in a small leadership role. By volunteering, you give greater visibility to your specific geographic area as you assist in finding presenters, organizing special events, and encouraging membership. There's a minimum time requirement, but a maximum help for our zone. Please reach out to, and I'll post that email in the chat later for more information. All right, I've asked you to do your CTLE and full name. You can also send questions to Tim. Tim is only going to be with us for about a half an hour, so I'm going to share my screen and show his presentation is recorded. Tim, I'm going to hand it over to you now so you can say a few words, and then I'll share the screen.
Great, thank you so much. Hey, it's really great to be here with the zone and to share some stuff about sensory integration and sensory processing disorder, all about the sensory integration motor sensory lab that we have at SUNY Cortland. But I want to just share a couple global things, meaning more national and state level adapted PE things that are coming up very shortly. So we have our state conference, and we're real excited to be there. I wanted to give a shout out to my really good friend, Ann Griffin, who is a National Adapted PE Teacher of the Year. She's a toy. She'll be doing 2 sessions at the state conference. And I tell you what, she is an amazing speaker. She's funny and fast and just the best. So please, if you're going to the state conference, we hope that you go to the state conference, check out Ann Griffin. She has 2 sessions. We also have my wife, which is exciting to share, that she's a former New York State Adapted PE Teacher of the Year last year. She'll be presenting with Ann as well, which is exciting. Her name is Alexis, and so that's an exciting piece as well. She's got some great ideas that related to sensory integration, sensory pathways. She does a lot with Fit and Fun Playscapes, which is a great company to work with, and we love all their vinyl rollouts and all the things that they do. You will see some of those products and some of those things in my session today, but they'll be at the New York State Conference, and they're also sponsoring some of the New York State sessions. So we're excited to work with them, and they're a New York group, so that's even more fun. On another level, I will share a document that our National Consortium for Physical Education and Individuals with Disabilities, a lot of acronyms there, it's ncpeid.org, has a administrator's guide for adapted PE. And it's a fabulous document that you can share with your directors of physical education, your school district administrators, principals, as well as your special ed directors, to say, hey, listen, this is what adapted physical education is, and this is what it should be. And there's a lot of confusion at times about how to provide the service of adapted PE. Adapted PE can be a class, but it's really a service. And it's really important that we all understand that. And those of you who've taken my classes in the past, you understand, and you're aware of those types of things. And that's all driven around, quality standards. We have adapted PE national standards, the APIN standards. I'm the executive director of that. And that's all driven by the National Consortium for PE and Individuals with Disabilities. So it's a great website for you to go to, ncpeid.org. Fabulous information there and support documentation that helps you interpret the federal mandates of IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. So all of those links will be in that administrative guide that I will send to Denise, and she'll hopefully post that to everyone who's in the session. And we want you to disseminate that and share that. Another big piece that's been long overdue is the adapted PE guidelines for the state of New York. If you're aware of the guidelines, that we actually have them, but they were published in 1998. I think there was the last publication. So my goodness, it's so long overdue. And because of the great work of and advocacy of our president, our current president, Clancy Seymour, he's been able to get the state to start the process to change these guidelines and rewrite these guidelines for adapted PE. I'm part of a group that will be serving on that and rewriting those. So we hope to have those done within a year. We're going to push real hard to get the state to move with us. We're ready to move fast, but they're kind of moving a little slower. So we'll do our best to get that information out to you, and it'll clearly identify what the services are for adapted PE and how important it is to collaborate with our OT, our PT, our speech folks, our related service people when we're serving kids with disabilities. So with that, there's some great people on this group. I see the New Rochelle group. Yay. Great work going on over there. They're really moving forward with some ideas in adapted PE, and I know a lot of you are. My email address will be in the chat, so feel free to reach out to me anytime. And my cell, I'm going to give that to Denise as well. We'll put it in the chat so you can call me if you have any questions about adapted PE, sensory processing or sensory integration, and kids with sensory issues, because we've got a lot of them, and any of the sensory pathway stuff. We do, like I said, we do a lot of fun things with fit and fun playscapes, and sensory pathway stuff is a wonderful way to provide social or really physically distancing in our schools and in our classes, but also create high academic learning time in PE where all the kids are moving, which is what our main goal is. So with that, Denise, thank you so much for letting me be here. I'll be on the chat for a while. So if you got questions right away, hey, fire them out. I'll be ready to respond. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so I think we should take advantage if anyone has a question immediately. Now would be the time, because Tim is going to be leaving us at 10:30. You can unmute, or you can just type in a question. Okay.
They'll probably have more after the session.
After. Okay, so they have your email.
Yep.
I put it in the chat, and I wanted to thank you. Thank you for dropping in, because I know you're in between sessions doing other things. So thank you. Thank you again so much for your presentation.
Not a problem.
If you can, and you're going to the state conference, please attend his sessions up there. Thank you.
Very good. All right. Well, let's start the session. Hopefully it works.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Bear with me, folks. Here we go. Okay, not yet. This one is the one I want to share.
So type in the website
There
for
it is.
PPID.
And I'm going to hit play, and please go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dr. Tim Davis, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about.
Got to turn the volume up, I think.
I'm gonna try.
To promote social inclusion. I am an associate professor from State University of New York at Cortland. We're in the sensory integration motor sensory lab, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that momentarily, but I'm excited to be here and excited to share our information. At the end of the session, you'll see an email address and my cell phone address. So you can reach out and contact me anytime if you have questions about sensory processing disorder, kiddos that struggle with sensory issues, impulsivity, any of those things. Happy to address, obviously, in the world of adapted PE or general physical education. Happy to help you there. So again, happy to be here. Excited to share our information and go from there. So with that, I'd like to share our PowerPoint and get started. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. I'll be down in the lower right-hand corner. And our session today is focused on sensory motor activities that promote social inclusion. And just to kind of get started, I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly. Always something.
You see?
Hopefully it's big enough for you to see. So I'm from upstate New York, very similar to my sons are getting much older than I am now, it seems like, and it's fun to be out doing these types of things with them and my wife. So I am from SUNY Cortland. We are a large physical education program. We have a lot of history in teacher education and specifically physical education, teacher education, or PEAT programs, and adapted PE. So we involve all aspects of outdoor education, indoor education, athletics, variety of things like that that help us run our programs. The programs at SUNY Cortland are broad and big. We do so many different things as we have almost over 1,000 physical education majors, undergrad majors. Yeah, it's a lot. And so we're involved in a variety of places, whether it's up at Golisano Children's Hospital or whether it's here at SUNY Cortland in our day-to-day programs, skill builders, challenger sports, our programs at night for adapted sports, as well as our BOCES programs. It's a busy place. However, COVID killed us all, right? COVID really got after us and made it difficult to do everything virtually. And so we were able to do some of that. Just like we are today, we're able to do some virtual work and share our sensory space. We are back online and back face to face, I should say, masked, of course, and doing the best we can, like everybody else, to share our information and to provide quality services for our kids and our students, our families, and our kids out in the community. So this is the Sensory Integration Motor Sensory Center and the Multisensory Movement Exploration Center at SUNY Cortland. I'm super excited to have this space to share with you. Halfway through, I'll jump out of the PowerPoint and share a little bit more. We're sponsored certainly by SUNY Cortland and what we do here. Been very lucky to get the resources and the services we have. Fit and Fun Playscapes have been amazing. We love this company that really have some nice sensory pathways, and we'll be talking about those today. And then Flag House, our equipment company, has supported us with all this great equipment to utilize and to showcase as we work with children on the spectrum, as well as children with sensory processing disorders here in the SIMS lab. So with that, our objectives today, kind of what we're hoping to get to, is certainly understand the importance of daily physical activity for our young children, how important that is for them to get out and move, not only inside, but also outside. We're going to look at basic motor skills and the importance of those motor skills, how they develop over time. We're going to look at sensory environments and how children process these types of settings. And then we'll look at sensory pathways and how those can promote this issue of social inclusion as we look at ways in which to bring children together in a meaningful and safe way. We'll also look at the science behind sensory processing disorder. And last but not least, we'll zero in on this idea of self-regulation, how we can engage kids to be to regulate and to engage other kids in an appropriate way socially. And we're going to talk a little bit about sensory continuity, a new concept that I'm playing around with right now. So sensory continuity will be on that list as well. So with that, we'll get started. Why should we have movement for young kids? I mean, you know, we all seem to understand it and know it, but why is it that physical education programs seem to be being cut across the board, or the reduction in physical activity across the board? This doesn't make sense. It flies in the face of what science, good science, medical science, health science says about the importance of movement, especially in young kids. Obviously, there are three domains that we focus on: the psychomotor or the physical movement aspect of development, cognitive domain, which is that thinking, and for me, sensory processing, that ability to bring that information to the brain and then express that in a meaningful way. And then the affective domain, that part that really has taken a hit this last year with kids being isolated in so many different ways and not being able to play. So that social emotional part and that ability to self-regulate has really been a struggle. And we're seeing that in young children right now as they come back to school. So we'll do our best to address that. And then, of course, anywhere along the way, if you have questions, hopefully you can write in on the chat, and you can at least get those to me in some way, shape, or form so I can answer them after our presentation. And like I said, I'm excited to be here, be involved with your state association, and get a chance to share. So as we think about why is movement so important, obviously the lifelong health implications, this is a given. This is a given. I don't understand why the government can't seem to understand there's a tremendous healthcare savings if we just allow our kids to be physically active and healthy. and promote that. I mean, just look at 10% of all premature deaths are associated to sedentary lifestyles. And this is a major, major problem. And it's all over the literature, right? So you can look at the literature and just reference this in whether it's JMA or whether it's a more educational journals, but there's a tremendous amount of evidence that speaks to the fact that if we don't move, we have a greater risk at increasing our body mass and being heavy, and those secondary health risks that go with that. And that affects, obviously, our long-term health and development. More specifically, it starts at a very, very young age. It starts when kiddos are just 1, 2, 3 years of age, and they begin to build on this sedentary lifestyle. They build on this idea that it's okay to not move, that it's to not play and engage. And we can't have that. We must have our kids out playing and moving. And I look at it from this perspective. We have to have our kids moving so that they can work on fundamental motor skills. Those motor skills don't just happen like reflexes, right? We don't just suddenly get up and are able to skip or hop or leap. We have to practice those skills. And those skills do come with the advent of development and change over time. But at the end of the day, it's about how we build those motor skills, how we help our kiddos be strong in those motor skills so that they can be confident in their shoes wherever they play, wherever they stand. And if we think about that idea, confidence in our shoes, that notion of physical literacy, that to me is the definition of physical literacy. I'm confident in my shoes outside in the snow, on the ice, in the gym, wherever I am, and I feel confident enough to play and play appropriately because I can self-regulate because I have confidence in this set of specialized skills, these fundamental movement patterns of object control and locomotion that allow me to engage. And if I have a sense of confidence in that, then I'm confident in my shoes and I'm on my way to being physically literate, a healthy, physically literate adult. And that's our ultimate goal. So we have these areas, right, that we work on. Locomotor skills, oh my goodness. Pre-K through 3, this is what it's all about. All the locomotor patterns, the run, jump, skip, hop, pull. And by the way, kids need to fall. They need to fall. They absolutely need to crash and know how their body responds to that. We should be teaching kids how to fall down. Absolutely. And it's a way in which we can promote that and do that in a safe and meaningful manner where kids can learn about their body, right? Really important skill to go along with our locomotor patterns that we already know. Manipulative skills of catching and throwing and kicking. Giving kids opportunity pre-K through 3 to be able to take an object and throw it or pick it up and smash it down on the ground as hard as they can so they can begin to learn about their body, right? And they can move things and push things. And again, experiencing those aspects is really, really important. And that leads to making sure that they're confident in their shoes, obviously, but stability is a big part of this. This is balance. Just no pushing that I'm going to be able to twist and leap and balance or just lean backwards. Imagine kids who just can't lean backwards because they're so afraid of falling. And what that means is they have an underdeveloped vestibular system. So we're going to look at that as we unpack a little bit more of fundamental motor skills and what they might look like. Now, these are pictures and slides actually from my dear friend, Dr. John Osmond out of the Midwest. He's just absolutely phenomenal motor development specialist as well as a adaptive PE person and just so knowledgeable. So anyway, check out his website at preschoolathlete.com. He's got some great things in each of these areas, running, jumping, hopping, and how to develop them. He's got activities associated with each, we'll call it a locker. He's got a little sport locker for kids that you just click on, it opens up and it's absolutely amazing, right? He's got great resources in each of these areas. So locomotor skills, manipulative skills to include these things, but I'm amazed at how many children struggle with just catching a basic ball. This is a little bit weighted ball because they don't have that ability to turn over or to cross midline, right? To bring their hands up in front of their face. They will often turn their hands in this pattern you can see my hands in the lower right-hand corner, and that ball will skip off and hit them right in the face, right? So catching is a huge piece that so many kids are afraid of. And as soon as they get hit with the ball, one and done, they're out. They're done. They're not going to play anymore. They don't want to participate anymore. And guess what? Sedentary behavior begins to, develop. And that idea that I can be sedentary and not play, and it's okay. And that's not okay. We need to get our kiddos up and moving. And again, here's our stability skills. That just basic idea that I can fall over, I can sit up, I can stand, I can lean, I can reach, I can twist, and I'm going to be okay. But so many children are afraid. Their repertoire, if you will, of movement is so narrow that they stay within this comfort zone and they never go beyond each area. It's like taking your finger and pushing it back or pushing it forward. I know how far it can go, and I can feel comfortable with that. And many of our kiddos don't even go that far. They stay well within this range. They're afraid of falling down. And if you know of a little one, you might bump them and they just melt into the floor and cry, oh, I fell down. Well, hey, you fell down. Now let's get back up. Why did we fall down? We're seeing so many children fall because they don't have a developed vestibular system or a strong proprioceptive system, or they're lacking in other areas as it relates to just experience of how their bodies move. So important. So not only should kids be getting, like pre-K through 3 should be getting daily physical education, we need to make sure they're getting additional movement opportunities throughout the day. So if they're sitting for 35, 40 minutes, part of that time needs to be up and moving in the classroom. Part of that time needs to be up and moving on a sensory pathway. Part of that time needs to be jumping and hopping and stomping and bending and twisting. And all of those things can happen in the classroom. All of those things can happen in a small space. All of those things can happen in conjunction with a quality physical education program that includes all children, and that includes children with disabilities. Definitely, one of the things that we'll talk about is that all children are sensory. All of us are sensory beings, and we all have these particular needs, right? So one of the ways that we might want to encourage this is to have movement pathways, sensory movement pathways. And these are 2 examples from my good friends at fitandfunplayscapes.com. They're awesome. These are vinyl rollouts, what they call their rollouts. And these are just 2 examples of lots of different ones that they have that automatically say to kids, jump, hop, leap, right? They just automatically go walk heel toe, walk forward, walk backward. Cross midline. Oh my goodness, that's a big one that we often don't do is cross midline. So putting these vinyl rollouts, and they're made out of a heavy vinyl material. And I'll get one here after a bit and bring it over and show you. But they don't slide. They're instant activities. So a classroom teacher who may not be fully versed in physical education can use these, put them out in the hallway, put them even in their classroom, and kids can do that. They can do it before school, after school. They can go in the gym as stations for a quality physical education program, connecting these as stations around the gym. So when kids are not actively engaged in a particular activity, they can do this. They can keep moving. That's the key. Getting kids to engage in daily physical activity, not just once or twice, but all the time throughout the day. I mean, that's a kid's job, is to play and move. That's what I believe. And so I think that's a great way to do it. So what are sensory pathways, by the way? What the heck? I mean, you kind of look at these things. This is my little girl, Quinn. She's so much fun. She loves sensory types of things. Here she is in a little, what we call our salad bowl. It's a big clear bowl, and it has just cut up noodles in it to provide her proprioception. But there's some examples there that you can click on YouTube. And some of these aren't so great. I'll be honest with you. Kids aren't crossing midline. Look at what they're doing. They're hopping. They might jump. They might step. They might lean against the wall. But at the end of the day, I'm not seeing quality movement out of these types of pathways. So we need to think about, hey, it might look really neat, but it needs to promote something. It needs to have the background and understanding and the science behind it. So that's where we kind of break off here in what we do. And I'm going to talk to you about the process or the science, if you will, of sensory processing. And yeah, we have 8 senses. How crazy is that? 8 senses. We have our basic 5 senses that everybody seems to kind of know, the sight, sound, touch, taste, smell, and they're powerful. I mean, just take smell, for example. I smell lavender, and it literally is like my grandmother has touched me on the shoulder. And it's like all these emotions come rolling back into my brain. And I can just picture her, how sweet she was and how wonderful she was. And how sometimes how tough she was to say, hey, you need to step it up, Tim. You need to get it going here. So little things that connect to the brain are often very much connected on a sensory level, right? Things we see, things we hear. And we know that when hearing is too much, we shut down. Kiddos tend to shut down when things are too loud. We know when things are too bright. Kiddos shut down when things are too much. Like there's just too much stimuli, like going to the mall at Christmas time, right? It's just too much for me, okay? Or texture or taste on a texture on a particular texture, whether it's a rubbery texture or whether it's a furry texture or whether it's a bumpy texture, like this one right here, a bumpy texture. All of these play into how a child responds to their sensory environment. And there's 3 additional ones that are super important for what we do as physical educators. And that is the vestibular sense, our sense of balance. You might notice I'm rocking back and forth on my wobble stool. I'm bouncing up and down on my wobble stool because I just can't sit still. There's just no way I can do that. Proprioception is a huge one. When kids sit for too long, their butts go numb, right? And you might say, how did that kid fall out of his chair? Anybody ever had a kindergartner literally fall out of the chair? Yeah, because their butts basically have lost the sensation and they don't know where they're at. They just slump over. It's unbelievable to watch kids not know where their body is in relationship to a hard surface like that. So proprioception is critical to knowing where we're at. And if you watch kids walk down the hallway with their hand on the wall as they walk along and they're touching the wall, that's proprioception. And tactile, they're feeling, they're saying, this is where I'm at in relationship to something else, right? And the last one, interoception, we could spend a whole session on this, but interoception is critical. And it's not only critical from the standpoint, bathroom, I gotta go to the bathroom, or my stomach hurts, or I'm full, or I just don't feel right today. I'm coughing and I don't feel good. So interoception is a major part of how we understand the internal aspects of our body, but it's also is connected to anxiety. And we're seeing so many children who are anxious and shut down and get tight because they're afraid of dealing with their peers. They're afraid of engaging somebody else, right? So that anxiety plays out in interoception. We see it in the heightened state of anxiety, which often is a high blood pressure, which often is a rapid, shallow breathing. And these are concerns. How can we adapt to that? We can ask kids to do hand breathing. Big breath in, big breath out, big breath in, big breath out, and just follow our hand all the way around. And that's a great way to lower that level of anxiety and help a child find homeostasis, not only in interoception, but across all 8 of these senses. But we have to know about it. The website there, Sensory Processing Disorder, or the STAR organization, is fabulous. You can get the 8 senses there. Absolutely wonderful. Dr. Lucy Miller, who's a fabulous occupational therapist, can give you this type of information and share some cool things. There's some really cool things here. And actually the link, this particular link is to a little boy. It's awesome. And he talks about what it's like to have sensory processing disorder. And he references 7 senses rather than 8, but because it's just a little bit dated. But his name is Neil, and you can play this and you'll see how he unpacks his own sensory system and how it impacts him. Well, without giving that particular piece away, I want you to go to that YouTube website and watch it on your own. You'll get this afterwards and you can watch it. It's fabulous because he struggles every day with how do I manage my body in these different environments. So one of the things that I really try to promote and do is giving kids ample ways to access the movement skills that they have. Well, what does that mean? It's almost like a universal design of learning, giving kids multiple ways to express, multiple ways to access their undeniable skills, which are their motor skills, their fundamental movement patterns, right? The ability to hop, jump, run, skip, whatever it is, right? And be confident in their shoes, because that's really where we want to be. So watch that particular YouTube. Think about how Neil manages his day-to-day by dealing with bright sounds and lights and what calms him and what doesn't calm him, what agitates him, like the vacuum cleaner or the blender, or what causes him to feel comfortable, which might be music. So there's lots of things to unpack in that video, and I do love it. It's promoted by the Star Foundation as well. So looking specifically though at sensory processing, so we can stay on track with our time, is that sensory processing is kind of this general idea that we're going to take in all of this information and our brain is going to be able to understand it, right? It's going to come in. It's going to come in through our hands. It's going to come in through our eyes. It's going to come in through our touch. It's going to come in through smell and through taste. It's going to come in through the way I feel and my angle in which my body is positioned. All of these different sensory receptors, if you will, help us collect and or process and bring that information into the brain. The aspect or the ability to integrate that information is a more specific term that is tied directly to the brain on how the brain then interprets that information. Oh, I'm going to send it to this part of the brain, or it's going to go here, it's going to go there. And so sensory integration is the body's ability to make sense of the information that comes in, the sensory processing information that comes into the body. And when we make sense of it, then we know how to respond. If we don't make sense of it, we often don't know how to respond. And when we're 3, 4, or 5, how might we respond if we don't like something? We push it away. We kick it, we push it, we shove it, we yell at it, we scream at it, right? We say no, right? Those are all things that we see in behavior of little ones who are struggling with sensory integration. And when we struggle with those types of things, you'll see impulsive behaviors. And instead of addressing it from a behavioral standpoint, you might want to think about it from a sensory standpoint. So when we talk about how this works, the brain is a fascinating device. It's really crazy. So the nervous system receives all of this information, right? All of this information, and it often comes at us at one time. It often comes at us like boom, all at once. And some of us have this natural ability to manage it. No problem. Hey, piece of cake. I can stand out here all day and have all this stuff fly at me, and I'm good to go. I'm calm as a cucumber. Other kids are going to melt right in front of your eyes, right? And they're going to struggle. And when things get overwhelming, how do you feel when you're overwhelmed? Are you able to read? Are you able to think? Are you able to make good decisions? Are you able to learn? It's pretty tough when you're struggling with just managing the amount of sensory information that's blowing up in your brain and trying to understand what to do with it. And then someone is externally asking you, want, do this, do that, do this, do that. And all the other kids around you, it becomes very, very difficult for a child who may be on the spectrum or may have a significant learning disability or who may have other unique characteristics that makes processing that information harder or take longer to understand it. It's not that they may not have the ability, it's that they take longer to understand it. It's a longer pathway. So sensory processing disorder is basically that condition that when the signals come in, that information comes in, we don't put it in the right place. We don't understand it. We don't know what to do with it. We often shove it out. And one of the ways we shove it out is by yelling, screaming, right? Running away, trying to mitigate that sensory input. Right? And stop that sensory input because our brain is flat out overwhelmed by it. Now, how can I play with my peer on a social level if my brain is going crazy with all this sensory input? I don't know what to do. So I do the first thing and I grab, I touch. I try to seek out a way in something that's going to calm me, something that's going to help me feel good, something that's going to either taste good, feel good, touch, feel, and so my go-to when it comes to kids who struggle with sensory issues is vestibular, is doing a vestibular activity. And one of my favorite go-tos, and I don't know if you can see it down here, but it is the spooner board. I love the spooner board. The spooner board is a fabulous piece of equipment, super durable. You can't break these things. You can run them over with a truck and you're not going to break it. And to have kids spin, rock back and forth, sit on it, do Superman, do whatever, in order to promote that vestibular piece, and such an amazing calming type of thing. And guess what? It takes up this much space, just that much space. Pretty awesome piece of equipment. One of my go-to all-time favorite when it comes to helping kiddos struggle who have significant sensory processing disorder. But I get ahead of myself a little bit. There's some other pieces that are important here, hypo and hypo responsivity. And basically all this means is that when we're creating, when we're teaching activities and we're out in the gym and it's super loud, sometimes kids respond because it's too much, right? And so the hyper responsiveness is this idea that it's way too much and it's overstimulating and I shut down. A hypo responsive response is that the kids need a lot to get going. Come on, let's get going. And they're just not willing to move or engage that much. So sometimes we need a heavy vestibular input to get them rocking, get them to have fun. Sometimes we need something heavy. And this is a little teddy bear, again, my good buddy John Osmond, Dr. Osmond created, where he's got this little teddy bear and it weighs about 2 pounds, right? You just put some bean bags in it, some sand, sewed it back up, and it's real heavy. But I know I'm carrying this. I know I can feel this on my shoulder, right? It provides enough sensory input for me to move forward and engage my environment, right? So kids will vacillate between hyper and hypo responses, right? And so I like to promote sensory opportunities in a environment that lean or lend itself to helping our kiddos find that balance or homeostasis. If I'm struggling with the environment because I don't know what to do with myself, or it's too loud or too much, I might mitigate that sound by using headphones, or I might provide an alternative. I might give the child a noodle, and they, children are more likely to make sound and be comfortable with it than to hear sound that's not there. So I'll have a child take a noodle and smack it on the ground. It makes a big smack sound, and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" And then smack it again. And guess what? Through that exposure, through that experience, and providing a sensory opportunity, children often will learn that it's okay, that they can work through that piece. They have issues of being, too much or too little in terms of responses and what their body needs. But at the end of the day, we can also promote and help them manage some of those things. So I like to talk to my OT friends and my PT friends about sensory diets. And I kind of like the preference, I like to use the term sensory opportunity, but sensory diets are very specific and they're scheduled and they're very specific about a child's need for certain types of sensory input, okay? And it's based upon SIT, or sensory integration theory, and by oh my goodness, I just lost her name. It'll come to me here in a little bit. Jane Ayers, there we go. By Dr. Ayers, created sensory integration theory in the 70s, and really tried to isolate sensory input for children so that they could gain an appropriate response or learn an appropriate response. Well, sometimes the world just isn't like that. We can't just shut certain things down and other things. So I am all about promoting sensory opportunities. I'm about promoting and giving kids a chance to let their bodies feel that extreme ends on one end or the other, so they're not just stuck here in the middle. I want them to, when they avoid a sensory experience, find out why. Let's look at it and see. Let's see if it's, I'm afraid to fall. Well, let's practice falling. If I'm afraid to be off the ground, a little bit fearful, let's start off by stepping on a 2x4 or a small balance beam to work on some of those things. Or let's use a pathway that I see this log on the ground, I'm going to jump over it, or I see this hopscotch, I can do that. I know how to do that. And so by promoting the movement and the opportunity to move, right, and creating the sense of continuity from one environment to another. So I'm going to use it in the hallway, I'm going to use it in the gym, and I'm going to use it on the playground, on the walkways and pathways surrounding the school. I, as a child, know, oh, I've seen that before. I know what that colorful thing is. I know how to jump on that. I know how to hop on that. I'm confident in my shoes, and I can self-regulate and do the skill and play with my peers. It's about continuity. It's about opportunity. It's not about separating out what a child needs to work on. It's about exposing them to all those things so that they can learn to self-regulate that. They can learn to choose the opportunity when they see it. And that because of the continuity issues, because of the similarities between one space to another, they begin to learn that they can generalize those feelings from here to there. And that's so critical for some of our kiddos who really struggle with managing all the sensory input that they're dealing with. Think about the idea of sensory continuity. Great stuff there. So how do we do this? How do we promote some of these sensory things? Well, we do it by using vestibular. I could do a splinter board with my peer. I could be standing, supporting with my bumpers up, my hands up, while my peer, my classmate is standing on the board or spinning on the board, and then we switch, right? So we can do vestibular things together. We can swing, we can do balance beams, we can promote obstacle courses. And I'm a huge fan of doing obstacle courses, right, to promote vestibular types of things. And like I said before, when I've got kiddos who are struggling on a behavioral aspect, then I do vestibular types of work. I also like to do heavy work, which is proprioception, which is the next one. I love kids to do wall push-ups, and I love kids to use a noodle to do to be a snowplow, and they're doing like a wheelbarrow type of pattern, but their hands are on the snow or on the noodle, and they're scooping up whatever we put out there. I like kids to pull a heavy tarp or push a wedge mat across the gym, and I'm behind it holding them back, saying, push this thing, come on, you guys, push harder. I love to do that. I love taking big dino steps, big dinosaur steps, heavy, slow, stomping type movements. These are great proprioceptive stimuli for our young kids who don't get a lot of this, because guess what? They don't put their bodies in those kinds of situations where they're crashing and falling. Now, we do have kiddos that do, but there's so many that just don't. And so this is all about promoting, giving kids the opportunity to feel how to fall and how to get back up and how to crash and how to move their bodies and know what that feels like. Obviously, tactile plays a major part of this, and tactile isn't just your hand, but it's everything else. It's your body, it's your skin, it's your feet, it's your head. It's everything that you might touch things with on a superficial level, whether it's certain textures like the popcorn ball, whether it's like this weighted one with I love this one because there's sand in it. So when I drop it, it doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't roll away from me. I love this particular piece. Here's one that's one of my favorite. This was called a sensory soccer ball. You can hear the beads in it. This is weighted. This was developed by an adaptive PE teacher, Pam Stockstead up in Alaska. You can go to her website, Sensory Soccer. So cool. Throw this out on the ground, it doesn't go anywhere. It's a little bit weighted, but when I kick it, I feel it on my foot. And I know I'm going to do well and be successful because it's only going to go a few feet. And I feel like a soccer pro when I use it, right? I love it. It helps me touch the ball frequently. And anytime, if you're in any athletic sport, you know that you get better if you have more touches to the piece of equipment. The more I touch it, the more I'm going to control it, the more I'm going to feel it, the more I'm going to know how to use it. And guess what? The more confident I become, and now I am confident in my shoes. I can go play soccer with this ball. So if you're one of those teachers, please say no, that you go out with 25 soccer balls and they're all the same, 25 footballs and they're all the same. You're not thinking about differentiation. You're not thinking about what your individual kids may need in order to be successful. And they'll say, well, it's all right, you'll just catch up. No, one and done, right? They fail, they're done. They don't want to participate anymore. So think about ways in which you can differentiate on a sensory level for all your kiddos, and especially kiddos that are included in your general PD class. So why the big deal with these sensory pathways? Why do you think, why do I think it's really important? Well, it engages kids at their own level, first and foremost, right? If I can't leap that far, then I don't have to leap that far. I can leap as far as I need to leap. I can create, like using the river stones right there. I love those river stones. They don't slide on the gym floor. You can get those at Flag House. And they're really awesome because they promote, moving and balancing and stepping and leaping in different motor patterns in midline crossing. But if I can't do it, it's okay. I just step to the next one. Not a big deal. It's not like I'm failing across the board when it comes to doing the movement correctly, right? So something to understand that there's sensory pathways literally all around us, right? You get up in the morning, you put your feet on the ground. That's a sensory piece. You stretch your body, you stand up, you walk to the bathroom. You're bending, you're twisting, you're brushing your teeth, you're washing your hands, you're doing all those things that are driven on a sensory level. I've got to go to the bathroom in the morning. Then I wash my hands. So I go from one extreme to another. Now I'm washing my hands, now I'm brushing my teeth. Oh, I got to eat breakfast. I've got to get dressed. I've got to do this. I've got to organize things. And when it's overwhelming for our kiddos, you can see it. They struggle, right? They can't find things. They're lost. They don't know where to go or what to do. And so it's really important that you understand that as a teacher, right? How can I help our kids navigate their day, and give them experiences that they need to lean towards or work towards self-regulation? And it's so critical. So consider ways in which you can do that. I love these sensory pathways. There's an example of the stencils that they paint out on the asphalt. Again, sensory continuity. I can go from the gym and I see that, and I can go outside on the playground at recess, and I can do that. Because you know what? I just did it in the gym with my teacher. How cool is that? That notion of sensory continuity. So when children struggle with processing or that notion of sensory regulation, it's often because it's unknown, right? It's something new. It's a transition. I'm moving on to something I don't know, and I'm afraid. So think about the anxiety that goes with not knowing or learning something new and not being exposed to it, and how we can just mitigate that by or make it disappear literally by simply giving them the experience they need to move forward. And here's some examples of trends that are on Facebook. And again, I ask
Okay, folks, I'm going to stop my
you, when you look
share.
at these,
Sorry, folks, bear with me. Okay, I stopped the share because the session time is over and we have another session coming up. I'm sure they'll send out a link for the whole session. There were about 10 slides left in the talk. I'll make sure that they send out the link so you can see the remainder of Tim's talk. I want to ask at the beginning of the chat, I put in a survey link. Please take the time to answer the questions in the survey. That will help us for future conference days. Lastly, every session we randomly pick a winner for a $25 gift card, and that person is Rhonda Boychu. Today you'll get something in the mail, a gift card in the mail from us. I want to thank everyone. I want to thank everyone for participating and listening, and again, ask you to please consider becoming a member if you are not a member. Have a great day. Thank you.